Hey friends, it's Laura with Laura's Handmade Haven. Welcome or welcome back. I'm so glad you joined me today. This is another subscriber requested video, and I'm just going to preface this by saying I am not an expert. I have not had a lot of experience in this area, but I've had enough where I feel comfortable that I can share a few tips and tricks with you and maybe give you some insight on where to get started and just to maybe get over some of those initial fears. So we're going to talk about free motion quilting on your domestic sewing machine today. And again, this is not something I do a lot of because I am very fortunate in the fact that my brother has a very nice Bernina Q24 and he allows me to come down and use it whenever I want. So most of my quilts and projects are long arm, but sometimes I do get smaller projects that it just makes more sense to go ahead and quilt those on my domestic machine. Or if I'm doing, small projects like coasters and placemats and things like that. So today what I have is a small size quilt. And I received this quilt from one of my friends. She knows that I collect quilts for Angel Wings in Mexico, Missouri, and those quilts go into Easter egg baskets for foster kids throughout mid-Missouri, and I try to give them a lot of quilts every year. So she had a couple panels that she just backed with some fleece. And then she serged the edges thinking that she was going to free motion quilt them on her domestic, and then after realizing that she didn't want to do that, she reached out to see if I would take that project on, and of course I will. So that's what we're going to be working on today, and like I said, I'm just going to give you a few tips and tricks on things that I do when I'm free motion quilting and straight line quilting, really. So that's where we're going to spend our time today, and I hope that you do pick up some a little bit of advice or a little bit of tips and tricks along the way, and that's really all our mission is for this video. So let's head on over to the sewing machine and we'll start talking through how we're going to tackle this project. All right, so I'm going to show you a couple different things that I do when I'm doing some free motion quilting or some quilting on my domestic machine. So when I look at this panel, the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of break it down in my mind with how I want to quilt it. And I usually go a pretty easy route because I don't want to stress myself out, to be quite honest. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a really easy zigzag around on this little border all the way around, up and down the whole design. And I'm going to do that first. And then I'm going to go and do some free motion echoing just in the middle around the little boy and the stars and things like that in the middle. So I'm starting my machine with just my regular foot. And I have a clear acrylic foot on my machine. And I'm using a Microtex needle, although you could definitely use a universal needle, which would be a little heavier. If you're doing a lot of free motion quilting through a lot of layers, then that might be a good idea for you. This is just a layer of fabric and a layer of fleece, so there's no batting in between. So it's like basically 2 layers. And she has serged the edges already, which is fine. But yeah, so I'm going to put this under my needle and I'm going to adjust my zigzag to the widest and the longest stitch I have because that's what I like to do. And I'm just going to start up here at the top, and I'm going to start with a stay stitch, not a back stitch, but just a stay stitch. And then I'm going to go straight down this entire edge. Just following that border as best as I can, I mean, if I get a little off, then I get a little off. No one except you is going to look that closely at your quilting, so just remember that. Let me move you closer so you can see where I'm stitching. Now I'm going to try my best not to hit the camera or the tripod, but if you see some wiggles, that's what happened. So basically my acrylic foot has this little triangle in the middle, and I'm going to keep that right on this line all the way down. And then when I get to the bottom, I'm going to cut my thread and go the other way, because I'm going to go like both ways on these corners, just do like the squares. right, so now if I wanted to, I could just go ahead and do zigzags up and down this entire thing and just be done with it and be happy with just that. But because I do want to show you a couple different techniques, I'm going to go ahead and put on my free motion foot, and we're going to do some free motion quilting in the middle of this panel. All right, so every machine is going to be a little different. So please refer to your owner's manual on what you need to do free motion quilting on your machine. For me, I do have a free motion foot. It looks like this. And it's just going to go on here. And I'll tighten down the screw, and we will put it back to a stitch length. Now, when my stitch length, you need to practice, all right? Just get some practice fabric and play around and decide. It's really a matter of length and speed, and more about your speed than anything else. So as you do free motion quilting more, you'll be able to go faster. But in the meantime, you just want to be patient with yourself and understand that you may not be going as quickly as you thought you were going to be. Now, they do have quilting gloves. I have not really found that they benefit me much. So, at least not with this project. If I had a bigger project, I probably would use some quilting gloves. But for this one, I think we're going to be fine without it. Okay, so I am using a Juki DX7, and I do have my float feature turned on, which basically just lifts up the presser foot a little bit and gives a little less pressure against the needle plate. So even when I am at a stop, the presser foot is not like tight down against the fabric. It allows me to float over top of it a little better. So we're just going to get started with the stay stitch. And I do have my machine set to where it stops in the needle down position. If that's an option on your machine, I highly recommend you do it. And then basically you're just going to sew and move your fabric around underneath the machine to do your quilting. So we're just going to go around the star. I'm going to use my foot as kind of a guide because I want to do an echo around this star. So I'm going to use the edge of this foot as basically my guide for how far away from the star I'm going to get. Is it going to be perfect? No, but it's going to be fine. Okay, so as you can tell, I'm using my hand over here basically to pull and move the fabric around a little bit. And that just kind of helps me get everything moving through the machine.
I'm just going as slow or as fast as I need to keep up with the turns and the areas that I'm quilting. I'm probably not going to put a ton of quilting into this just because I just want to kind of, echo a little bit, but not go crazy with the quilting. I feel like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like we go overboard with quilting and then the quilt isn't as soft. And since this is for a little kid, I want it to be really soft and pliable. So I'm going to keep some quilting, to the minimum, basically. Alrighty, let's see. I think let's go around his hands. We'll do some more quilting in here, maybe. Now, when I stop, I don't want this to move. So do whatever you need to do. If that means letting go, then let go. If that means studying it, then study it. Whatever that means for you, that's what you need to do. And then let's see. Maybe let's go around the baseball a little bit. I'm just trying to think about how big of an area I'm leaving unquilted. If you can put your hand on it and it's bigger than your hand, like this is really kind of pushing it over here, but I'm going to leave it. His hat is definitely big, so I'm probably going to run a line up on between the yellow and the green. I think I'm just going to leave this. I think it'll be fine. I'm just using my free motion foot as kind of like a guide. I'm just keeping this edge along the edge to have kind of a consistent echo around my shapes and different things. Obviously, I was not consistent there, but it'll be all right. And I end with a stay stitch and then cut it. Let's go up here and just do a little more in the hat. Okay, so when I'm going like this, I'm going to a quilted area. I will put my hand on it and kind of pull a little bit just to make sure I don't get any wrinkles. And then I'm just going to continue going around all the other stars in the background, and I may do some like bubble letter type things around these letters, and then we will be done. So I'm just gonna keep working on this, and you can watch. Okay, so I definitely have some strings to cut on the back, but you can see that it is quilted all the way through, and a cute little design. But yeah, so this would be fine for a little one. There's plenty of quilting in it to keep the layers together and keep them from shifting when it's washed and used. And we did all of it on our domestic machine, so you can do it. Just go slow, and it definitely takes some practice. I would start with a simple project and maybe one that you don't care a lot about. Like start with some placemats, start with some coasters, start with something that you're going to be able to get done pretty quickly and try out some different free motion techniques. Now, obviously, you can do other things too. I could have done a meander on this. That would have been fine. I could have done just some wavy lines up and down or across. I could have stuck with just that zigzag and went down and across in a few more places and been done with that. So don't feel like you have to go like super crazy with your free motion quilting just to get something quilted, right? Start with something small, start with something easy. Be patient with yourself and just practice on adjusting your speed to your machine with the speed that you're moving, and just kind of work on being able to adjust your speed with the speed of movement. So adjusting how fast your needle's going with how fast you're moving your hands. And all of that just takes practice, and all of that just takes time. I still have a lot of learning to do and a lot of practice to do before I feel like I'm really good at it. But I feel like I can do a good enough job to get the job done, to finish the project if I have to. So I hope you did pick up a couple tips and tricks. I hope that just seeing someone who is not really proficient tackle it and take it on and show you that it is doable. Leave me some comments down below. Let me know what you think. This was a subscriber request, so I just want to let you guys know that I do read those and listen to them, and I work them in as I can. Until next time, find joy in all you do, carve out some time for crafting and creating, and remember, it's always better when you make stuff up.